All right, this is journal page 340, lesson 14.4, and it starts with classify the real number. This is the square root of 14. Well, 14 is not a square number, so we have the square root of a non-square number, which makes this irrational. Well, that's nice and easy. Number 2, negative 3 over 7. Well, this is a rational number because we can write it as a fraction, so we know it's rational. And the next classification we had was integer. Well, an integer is a whole number and their opposites. This is not a whole number or its opposites. This is something in between 0 and 1. Actually, between 0 and negative 1. So not an integer, not a whole number, not a natural number. Number 3. 153 over 3. Well, 153 over 3, that'd be 51 if you do that division. 51 is rational. It can be written as 51 over 1. It is an integer. It is a whole number. And it's a natural number. That's all of them. Number 4, estimate the square roots to the nearest integer and the nearest tenth. So the square root of 8, well, that's going to go, we know the square root of 9, oops, that's a 9, is 3. The square root of, that's horrible. I should have started with the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 9 is 3. Pretend that this does not exist. Well, we know that the square root of 8 falls somewhere in between the square root of 4 and the square root of 9. So its answer will be between 2 and 3. We also know that the square root of 8 will be way closer to 3 than it is 2. So for number 4, A, the square root of 8 is approximately 3. It's closer to 3 than it is to 2. Now, we've got to go and do the decimals because it needs it to the nearest tenth. So we'll do 2.1 and 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4. Well, 2.5 is in the middle, and we already know this was closer to 3. In fact, we know 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, 2.9. Now this is pretty close over here, so I would do 2.8 times 2.8. Let's try with that one right there. We'll do it off to the side. You can use a calculator at home if you want. 2.8 times 2.8. And 2.8 times 2.8 is 7.84, which is pretty close to 8. That means the square root of 7.84 equals 2.8. And so now we want to go a little higher than 7.84, so I'll go to 2.9. 2.9 times 2.9 equals 8.41. 8.41. So the square root of 8.41 equals 2.9. Well, the square root of 8 falls in between these two, and it's going to be closer to 8 is closer to 7.84 than it is to 8.41. So to the nearest tenth, it's going to be 2.8. So the square root of 8 to the nearest tenth, this is part B, is going to be 2.8. We would run these problems the same kind of way. So number 5, 60. So if I want to go down to the nearest square number that is below 60, that would be 49. The square root of 49, which we know is 7. And the square root of 64, which is 8. And the square root of 60 is in here, obviously closer to 64 than 49. We'll put it somewhere in here. Square root of 60 is going to be closer to 8. So for A, the square root of 60 is closest to 8. Now, it wasn't super close, so if I'm going decimals on this, obviously 7.5, we're not going to check these because it's closer to 8. So 7.6, 7.7, 7.8, 7.9. I'm going to check 7.7 times 7.7. 7.7 times 7.7 is 59.29. Whoa, super close. The next one up would be 7.8, 7.8, 60.84, and 60 is closer to 59 or 59.29. Okay, so we want the square root of 60 is about 7.7, rounded to the nearest tenth. Number 6. Going to have to remember that negative at the end of this problem. The negative. But we want the square root of 172 over 25. Well, 172 over 25 is 6.88. So really this is the negative of 6.88. The nearest one going down would be not 1 but 4. So the square root of 4, which we know is 2, and the one going up would be 9, square root of 9, which we know is 3. So the answer is going to be somewhere between 2 and 3. 6.68 is going to be somewhere in here. 6.68. Well, it's 2.68 from here, and we'd have to add 2.32. So it's closer to the 9, so our answer is going to be closer to this 3. So for part A, the negative square root of 6.88 is closest to negative 3. Don't forget that negative. But it was really close. It's kind of in between there. So now when I'm checking these numbers, I'm going to go pretty close. I know we've got, 2.5, 2.6, 2.7. I'm going to try 2.6 times 2.6. Multiply those and I get 6.76. .7 would actually go higher. 2.5 would go a little lower. Let's try that. 2.5, 2.5, 25, 10, 11, 12, 0, 10, 4, 5, 6, 2, 5, 6.25. This is closer to 6.76 than it is to 6.25. So we'll go with our 2.6. So the negative square root of 6.88 to the nearest tenth is closest to negative 2.6. Now we come down here, which is greater. Explain. So for number 7, the square root of 88 or 12. Well, 12 is the same as the square root of 144. Which one's bigger here? Obviously this, which makes 12 our larger. Number 8. Negative square root of 18. Negative, 6. Well, this negative 6 is the same as the negative square root of 36. Now, without the negatives, we'd say, well, the square root of 36 is larger than the square root of 18. But because of the negatives, we're on the left side of the 0. This will actually be the larger value. It's farther to the right on the number line. Number 9, 14.5, or the square root of 220. Doing the same kind of thing as up here. 14.5 times 14.5 is 210.25. So square root of 210.25, and this one is larger. Finally, number 10, The velocity in meters per second of a ball that is dropped from a window at a height of 10.5 meters is represented by this equation. Estimate the velocity of the ball. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. So we're going to do this problem right here is what we're doing. So velocity equals the square root of all this stuff going on. 2 times 9.8 times 10.5. Well, 2 times 9.8 times 10.5 205.8. So we want square root of 205.8. Same thing. Well, now we need to go a little up and a little down from this. We know that 14 times 14 is 196. So square root of 196, which would be 14. If we wanted to go higher, we'd go square root of 225, which is 15. And we're somewhere in between here. We're only 9 and almost 10 away from this. And if we add, we have to add like 19 on here. So we're closer to the 14. So this says to the nearest tenth. So now we go 14.1, 14.2, 14.3, 14.4. Well, 14.3 times 14.3 is 204.49. And 14.4 would be 207.36. We're in between these two, and we are closer to 14.3. Okay, we're 205.8 is closer to 204.49 than it is 207.36. So to the nearest tenth, we'll choose the 14.3. So velocity equals, we should put a little approximately, 14.3. And that's in meters per second. It says it right here. Velocity in meters per second. Well, boys and girls, I hope this helped. If you have any questions, keep them until Monday. You can come to tutoring in the morning or ask in class. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend.